It's on this day, February 15th, 2025, that I have finished Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. I can't believe it. Um, I finished Stormlight Archive. I finished the Stormlight Archive. Era 1. I I don't have the words. I literally, it's been hours since I finished the book. It's been like 4 hours since I finished the book, and I'm like, it hasn't hit me that I finished it. I finished it. The epilogue, the end note, everything. I finished it. It's really weird. I feel I felt like I'm just like floating. Like I don't. There's no like. It hasn't hit me yet that it's happened. So this will be a weird video because I think this is probably like the first time this has happened. I don't know. I don't know how I reacted to Leviathan Falls, but this is very strange. I was expecting an ending like Hero of Ages. To be very honest, I was expecting to be crying and everything at the end, but instead we have this, which we'll talk about in non-spoilers and spoilers. So we'll get started with non-spoilers. Um, I guess let's start with the series. I love this series. I love the series. I just want to emphasize everything I said in the Rhythm of War post again. That I love the series. I love all the characters, the world building, the plot, all of it. All of it. All of it's great. It's so good. It's fantastic. That hasn't changed. The world is just so good, and this adds even more lore. If you thought he was done with world building, you are very, very, very wrong. This book might have the most world building in many ways. So prepare yourself. Something I didn't mention in my Rhythm War video that I do want to mention here is that I love the themes. The themes that this series has. Each book has, several new ones, but there's a lot of consistent themes. I love the themes. They are very applicable to real life. It might not feel like it, especially when you see it in the book, but when you contextualize them or direct them, you can see that there's a lot to learn from this series, and I think that's part of why I love it so much. Especially Way of Kings. Way of Kings really drew my attention because of that, actually. I think that the beginnings of the themes in Way of Kings are part of what really drew me to continuing the series and making me love the series so much. Um, so I want to emphasize the themes in particular, and I love these characters. I really do. All the characters are my favorite characters. Um, I cherish all of them so much, flaws and all. Um, there's some other series where like I feel very picky with their flaws. I got very picky with Vin's flaws. This is different. Like all of these characters, I cherish the whole of them so much. I love them. So yeah, that that is most certainly true. As for Wind and Truth, this book is different. It's different. It's not different, different, but it is different. I think it is right. I think how this book went down makes sense to me. I like it. I rather like it. I gave it the full 5 stars. I mean, I could not give any of these books less than 5 stars for me, by my standard, which I'm sure I'll change that standard one day. But currently, um, yeah, these are 5 of the best books I've ever read, ever. Full stop. Don't even need to add anything more. Um, I can see some people treating this book differently because it is kind of different. There's just so much going on in the book that a lot of the things that were previously like the big moments in the previous books aren't going to be big moments in this book because this book is approaching it differently. Um, it's also very Cosmere heavy. I think, keep in mind, I've not read Elantris and I've not read Lost Metal and I've not read the Secret Novels yet. I think this is the heaviest Cosmere book that has been written. It's really Cosmere heavy, like big picture. I would read, if you haven't, I would read Warbreaker and Elantris and all of them before reading this book. I kind of wish I read Elantris before reading this book and Edge Dancer. I think I should have known those things. I have read Dawnshard, thankfully, and that is relevant to this book. So I think this is a book where you should be prepared with your lore because there's so much in it. There's so much in it. And I think that's part of why it makes it hard to take in this book. And I'll talk about this more in spoilers as well. But it's hard to take in this book because it's so big picture. Not that should not deter you. It just means be prepared for it. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more information. And keep in mind, this is the longest book Sanderson's ever written. It's even longer than Rhythm of War by a bit, which is crazy. He really packed it in dense. It's not hard to read dense. In fact, I read Wind and Truth in 8 days with school. With school. It's doable. You can do it. It is readable. I am just saying that some things can feel fast because Sanderson has to go fast. He's packing in so much stuff that you're just going to jump into a new point of view and you're going to have like all this information thrown at you. So my biggest thing that I would say is to caution you, if you haven't read it yet, that is a thing. You're going to be tossed around a lot of different stuff going on. It's also in a different format, which I'll let you figure out for yourself if you have not read it. But the new format is very interesting as well for this book, very fitting. But it also, it feels different kind of anxiousness in this book. So I think those are a lot of my things. I'm going to try to avoid commenting on the stuff I've seen on the internet because that's not relevant to me. This is about my opinion. My opinion is that I love the book. I really do. And I suspect I will get a very different vibe when I reread it in 10 years. I'll definitely reread it before then, don't get me wrong. But I still gotta buy it. I haven't bought it yet, so can't read it yet. But yeah, this book is different, but I do very much love it, and I'll get into why I love it in spoilers. So, if you don't want spoilers, leave now. So, Wind and Truth. This was a book. Not to state the obvious, but like, this was an interesting book. I mostly wrote down all my favorite moments because I need time to process all the other moments. I think a lot of the things that I'm more unsure on are things that are just not resolved, which we'll talk about that more at the end here. But I think a lot of the things that I'm not sure on talking about, like Yasna, for example, she wasn't a main character. She was in it. All the characters kind of got some attention at some point. But, like, Yasna's plot kind of went in a full circle, in a way. So I don't have much to comment on other than, like, restating her story, you know? I love her. But, like, it's hard to comment on her. So I have a lot of things like that where I'm not sure what to talk about or what to say. So I just made a list here on my screen of all my favorite spoiler moments that I can talk about. They're kind of in order. there's a kind of flow to them, but bear with me. We're just gonna work our way through this list because it's really hard to talk about this book at this moment, and I think that whenever I do my 1 to 3 year review where I reread Stormlight Archive, I think that is when I'll dive into what I think about Wind and Truth long term. Um, I think by then it won't be helpful to people because people right now are trying to figure out if they want to read Wind and Truth. Honestly, just go for it. I There's just so much lore in this book that alone makes it worth it to me. My opinion is I love the lore that is revealed in this book. I love it so much. Which gets into our first spoiler point, the beginning of the book, where we get the reveals about Gavilar and Wit. Wit became a main character in this book. Wit revealed way much more than I thought he would in this book, and I'm happy. I love it. I love it so much. But I really did not think that he would share as much information as he did. I didn't think we'd figure out as much about the Cosmere as we did here. So I'm very happy to figure that out. I am a bit surprised by how blind Dalinar was to Gavilar's behavior, and I think that's a whole theme and a whole point. But Gavilar at the beginning of the book, like the few point of views we had of him were heavy. And I'm really wondering if the characters will ever figure that out, or if it will just remain unknown, except for to Navani. I'm also kind of surprised that Dalinar and Navani in their marriage have not talked about Gavilar. You know? So that's a remaining mystery to me. There's a few mysteries that could still be resolved in the sequel series if all the main characters are still part of it. I'm not sure what's going on there. But the reveals at the beginning of the book with Gavilar and Wit really raised the stakes. The beginning of the book, I already was like, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And that's when I noticed that the format was in days. Day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way to day 10. So that was stressful. That was definitely stressful. Going through the different days and seeing how fast the days go. That was scary. Pretty early on in the book, we had the teleport to the spiritual realm, which had Shallan, Relaine, Renarin, Dalinar, Navani, Mraize, Hisbapsk, and Gavinor. That was crazy. I was very worried about Mraize and everything he was going to do there. I thought Mraize was going to kill Lift or kill Navani or Wit when that happened. Like I know Sanderson. I know he does some crazy things at times. So now my brain tries to come up with the craziest things he can do and panics about that. So I was like, Wit's gonna take the bullet, or like Dalinar's gonna get stabbed by the anti-void blade. And at the time, I didn't know what would happen if he got hit with the anti-void blade. I thought it would explode. Turns out later that they don't explode; they just instant die when they use Stormlight with the void light. But he stabbed the portal, and then everyone got sucked in. Wit caught someone, which by the way is very impressive, and I kind of want to reread that scene because that was cool. But Gavinor went in. All of that was insane, and you found out that Gavinor went in afterward, which hit like even harder. So like that whole everything going on there, that was intense. I was a huge fan of that. And then for the rest of the book, like pretty much 90% of the book, all of those characters are stuck in that realm, and you have all of them pretty much like doing 3D chess with each other by accident. So there's a lot of complication with the spiritual realm, and I think that's part of what makes this book hard to process, is that so much of it is in the spiritual realm. We'll talk about that more some later, but there's just so much of the book is there in this realm that we don't really understand. It's a little hard to grasp because it's supposed to be the past, but it can also just make new memories. You can interact with stuff, but you can't. I think that we are missing a little bit of lore of how the fuck the realm works. So we might get that eventually. We might not. I don't know. But I will say that all the flashbacks were very interesting. I was a huge fan of a lot of the flashbacks. I do think my favorite will probably forever be the one where they teleport from Ashen. I can imagine that scene where I just thought of another scene to talk about. I can just talk about this after I talk about this. But my favorite scene, they come through the portal of Ashen. I can see like the portal in the sky that Navani was describing, with the herald pretty much like holding it open and people are coming through, and Wit looks so broken. I thought that was fascinating. But it also turns out that the dreamscape can't make Wit reliably, which is also very interesting. Um, but there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there. So I think that one's one of my favorite flashbacks. I also like later, um, when we're in the flashbacks of Tenevast, um, having it be revealed how the Shattered Plains was made. I was that was a really good one too. I was a big fan of that one. So a lot of flashbacks and a lot of lore drops, pretty consistent through there. I think another lore drop that happened with the Shattered Plains, or not with the Shattered Plains, with the visions in the spiritual realm. Shallan is the daughter of a herald. I knew the scene with the mother was coming, and I honestly wasn't too worried about the scene with the mother. I thought this is information Shallan knows. She's going to handle it pretty well, I'm pretty sure. I don't know what could go wrong other than Mraize killing Shallan. I didn't know what could go wrong with the memories of her mother. Um, and so that's why I was surprised when it turned out her mother is a herald. That is a different story. And Neil being the one who was, getting everyone to kill potential radiance is crazy. So that's a really like deep plot that is there. Um, that one also stood out to me. But other than that, there aren't a lot of Shallan moments that I would really highlight. I think her conversation with Mraize, of like Mraize wanting to go to the planets, was interesting, but I really don't have that many like huge Shallan moments from this book, honestly. I think reliving her wedding was interesting too. And the end. I do like, at the end of the book, Shallan made a deal with Idakar. That was satisfying. I was a big fan of that. We'll talk about Shallan at the end as well, because the end, I'm going to talk about the ending, and I have some comments about the ending. The other thing about the Dreamscape is Verlaine and Renarin. Before they went into the Dreamscape, Renarin was pretty much thinking to himself, like, man, why do I have to like boys? What's up with that? I am such an outcast. And then that one member of Bridge 4 that I can't remember his name, who has a husband, Slay, um, he came up and was talking to Renarin and giving advice. I have so much respect for that. I'm very curious if Renarin will ever ask for that advice. But that seems very meaningful to me because it's just very strong. It's a very common thing that happens in real life, which is why I have a lot of respect for that. As for in the Dreamscape, I didn't think it would actually happen. I thought Renarin would accept that maybe he felt things. I didn't think Sanderson would put it in the book. But he did. And I have so much respect for it. I really do. He was so bold. It shouldn't be bold. Bold should be the wrong word. It should just be, right, not bold. But we'll use the word bold because, current society. It was bold of him to put them kissing in the book, and I am here for it. I am so glad he did. It appears many people are not happy about it, but I think it fits. I will say that the orb scene, where Relaine summons the orb, that was a little cliche. That was fan fiction cliche. As someone who reads fan fiction occasionally, that was fan fiction cliche. So could use a little. That was maybe a little bit unnecessary. That might have been a little bit too far. You could argue it gave Renarin the balls to do it later, but I feel like if Renarin just did it later anyway, I wouldn't feel too upset. Maybe it was meant to be humorous, and it was funny. I mean, I was like are you kidding me? Is this really happening? But it's more so laughing at Sanderson than the characters. So, you know, but in general, I love the Relaine Renarin developments, everything they go through, seeing Relaine's background, and then seeing Renarin, seeing him grow as a character finally. I've been waiting for that. I've been wanting to see him more. So I'm very glad to see Renarin. And I think it's very fitting for the two of them to come together. Um, Especially when Renarin went through the image of the two of them ruling. I'm so down for that. I think that is very fitting. And I don't care that they didn't listen to Shallan. I think that would have been the right thing. Even if it didn't work out, I would have been pro the two of them releasing the Unmade. And the fact that they did it together was very meaningful. So I'm very happy with those developments. Very happy. I never would have expected them, but I am so here for it. Very quickly became a supporter of that ship. All right, next up, Kaladin. Huge fan of Kaladin therapy. I First of all, the quote of Wit being like, "You'll be the first therapist on this planet." Love that. Uh, your world's first therapist. He was really unsure at first, and he was going through it. And he's just trying to figure out what the fuck he's gonna do with his life. And as he's going along, he really figures out therapy by accident. He steps his way into it, and I love all the quotes where one he refers to therapists, everyone else is like, "What are you talking about?" But I also love all the quotes of people telling him what to feel or like what to do, and he's like, "That's not how this works. I just ask you questions and you ponder on them," and them being like, "What the fuck?" Very accurate. That is real life therapy, in fact. So I loved all the therapy scenes. I will say that Sanderson used the same trick a few too many times, in my opinion. I'm not sure on the therapy working on Nightblood. It just felt that was the too manyth time. Especially the "I'm not a thing." That was the second or third time the "I'm not a thing" idea worked. And so that's why I'm not so sure on it working on Nightblood. That felt a bit like a plot hole plug. I don't think that's what he meant. Honestly, he has so many editors that I doubt that would have gone through with the amount of editors he has. I think I'm just picky. Um, but I will say that's when I'm a little more unsure. But Kaladin Therapy had a lot of great moments. Big fan with all of that. I also love when Kaladin like used his spear to block Seth from being stabbed. Um, the chink, that was great. So I also love Syl and Maya, two very different characters, but Syl, great as always. Her humor is crazy. She's like full human in this. She's gotten a lot of personality. And that's why I also mentioned Maya. Maya has a lot of personality in this book. She really develops. And she has a very crude humor. She curses a lot. And I'm here for it. So, big fan of Maya as well. And that segues straight to Adolin. Adolin's plot, Adolin's whole plot in this book is probably my favorite. I love Kaladin Therapy, so that's also very high. But Adolin's plot kicks ass from the very beginning to the Shardplay fighting tactics, and he's processing this hate for his father. Relatable content. And there's the command planning, and he's talking to the Emperor. I love all the conversations with the Emperor and putting women in the army. He's finally figuring that out. It's taking a little bit to get his brain through it, but he's getting there. He talks to a trans character, by the way. There's a trans character in the background, so that's very interesting. He has a stupid fucking candelabra scene. I can't believe he fought with a candelabra. I mean, Slay. I can't believe he fought with a candelabra. That's crazy. And then the 10 Shardbearer scene, which is fantastic. That's one of my favorites. Also, he went to fight against a fucking Thunderclass by himself. I mean, Adolin, he kicked ass in this book. He kicked all kinds of ass. And I think it is very fitting what he has lost. Honestly, I feel like he could have lost maybe a little bit more, but he kicks ass. I am excited to see his future, whatever that bears. Also, in the same realm, Tone. Tone went all out. That was epic. We didn't even get to see it. We just got to see the aftermath, but that was enough. Just just Tone being like, I'm awake now, and just standing up after having no emotions or anything, and then just Adolin comes back afterward, post Thunderclast on his like new leg, his peg leg, and just hundreds of singers and Fuse and everything are dead, and then there's just Tong stabbed with many many spears, just dead. That's crazy. That is crazy. So that was badass. That's one of my favorites. Love that. Continuing on badass characters, Dalinar, not surprising, but particularly Dalinar in the visions that Odium was forcing him to have. I particularly liked Dalinar slapping previous Dalinar, or Sadius. He slapped Sadius, and I think previous Dalinar. That whole sequence of him pretty much throwing the barrel out so that he wouldn't burn his wife and all that. Loved that. I was a huge fan of that whole sequence, and I loved all the Noadon moments. I love Noadon. Honestly, we don't get to see him enough, in my opinion. I really want to know more about him. I wanted him to have more direct quotes in this book, but we got to see the man, which is more than I was expecting. So I'll take it. But I loved all the Noadon moments. I think probably one of my favorite quotes of the book, if not my favorite quote from this book. Of course, I closed it by accident because I'm a silly goose. So now I have to load it up awkwardly in the middle of my video. Come on. Scroll up. Noadon quote. There's some dialogue in the middle where Dalinar responds. I skipped that in the quote. You will love, you will hurt, you will dream, and you will die. Each man's past is your future. Listen, remember. The question is not if you will love, hurt, dream, and die. It is what you will love, why you will hurt, when you will dream, and how you will die. This is your choice. You cannot pick your destination, only the path. Slaps. Slaps so hard. Love it so much. I also love that the words in The Way of Kings that are the right words that any man can say, or, the most important words a man can say is, I understand you. That's so good. That is so good. I'm very satisfied with that. I was wondering through Rhythm of War, like, what are the right words? And through the early part of this book when fucking Gavilar was talking about needing the right words and just randomly guessing them. I understand you. That's a really good one. I'm a huge fan of that. It really says a lot to the overall themes. Like that it really does say a lot to the overall themes. And then Dalinar just rejects the power. Also the fact that Dalinar dies to the storm, not to Odium, and Odium doesn't even realize it, and he goes back to kill him, and he's already dead. Cheeky, 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 cheeky. I'm a big fan. There, I think like I'm a big fan, but in a way different than the other Sanderson books I've read. It's not like a big moment where it's like super satisfying because it's like very stressful or scary or whatnot. I had no idea what would happen, but not in a stressful way. I don't know how to explain it, but like everything Dalinar did, I was just reading what he did, and when he did it, I was just like, okay, wow, like that was my reaction because I didn't really know what else to do other than to process what he did and figure it out. I think it's clever. I'm very interested in what he did there, and I love that. He was saying in his head, "Sunmaker's Gambit," and then like that was it. It makes a lot of sense. It really does, and it shows that Wit was wrong early on in the book. So, full. Well, I guess wrong in Rhythm of War. Very interesting to me. Next, Tarbengian. We gotta talk about Tarbengian. I thought he got rid of Carbranth for real. I was shook when that happened. I really thought that he got rid of Carbranth. He just was like, I do the greater good. I do everything for the right reason, and then he just killed his city. That's what I thought happened, and then went to war with cultivation. Um, I find it very fascinating that he actually saved them supposedly. I don't know how saved they are. I don't know how normal they are. I don't know anything else. He just kept them in his own realm. I think I'd have to reread to really understand the depth of that choice that he did. But, no way that will have repercussions later. The Gavinar reveal was harsh. I really thought it was Elokar at first, and I did several double takes of like, how the fuck is it Elokar? Like, isn't he dead? But I convinced myself that it could be Elokar because Sadius was dead, and they fought Sadius and Oathbringer. So I was like, okay, maybe it's possible. No, it's Gavinor. That is harsh. I have to say, because again, because of the pacing of this book, I really thought that it'd be leveraged harder. It ended up not hurting too much for me because nothing happened to Gavinor. He actually lived. He's fine. Um, I did not for a second think Dalinar would kill him. I really did not. I had no doubt in my mind that Dalinar would do something else. And the whole time, that whole confrontation, I was thinking to myself, like, there's never only two options. So, but the reveal itself was very harsh. I was like, oh my god, he literally just stole that child's life from the child, and also you and Navani. That is crazy. Um, yeah, that's crazy. Some final notes. Therapist Harold is very funny. Talking about the end of the book with Kaladin. Kaladin is a therapy herald. I am so excited to see how they feel and do post therapy. Also, Talon saying that he forgives them is very meaningful, so I very much appreciate that scene too. But very curious about the heralds returning um, and seeing how they're doing. I mean, there's a lot to process there. There's a lot to process there. But I really think both Dalinar and Kaladin can understand the pain they've been through. Maybe not, torture, but I mean, Kaladin did go through a lot of Odium's torture. That's why he was able to get up when Ishar was showing all of his visions. Sigzil also kicked a bunch of ass. He's kind of a background character, but he did a lot of cool stuff. I love his engineering brain. I'm a big fan of engineering. I am fascinated by him now having a Dawn Shard. Also, Wit, Wit and Rise. It's Raze, right? I don't know. I don't know how to say her name, but Wit and the other person, the Dawn Shard, interacting with each other was scary. They started just like black hole, like zzz, everyone's like they were gonna destroy the place, and Wit was like, no. I love Wit. I love Wit so much. He's like my favorite. Sixel now has Wit's Dawn Shard. Very curious about that. I'm also curious about them interacting in the future. It sounds like it's changing Sixel, so I'm very curious what that means and what's going on there. Wit's panic was very entertaining. Wit just coming in and being like, take the Dawn Shard, and then like being like, hi, Terravengi. It just turns into mist. Oh my god. He's still alive. Thank God. I'm so glad. I love Wit. I really do. I really love him. I don't care that he's a lying bastard. He is my man. So, We see Wit is still alive, and he figures it out at the end, and he's on Scadrial in the epilogue. I know what that means. I remember Scadrial. So, interesting. I think that means, I think that means that Stormlight Archive is pre-Era 2 or in the middle of Era 2 of Mistborn, because he signs up to be one of the cart drivers. What are they called? It starts with a C. Carriage? It's not a carriage, it's a... You know what I mean, one of those. He is one of those drivers, and I think, it's been a long time since I read Era 2. I think there's a scene where Wayne interacts with one of them. I think that's what it is. Curious. I think it's also very curious that Sir Wit has many forms of the different magics across the Cosmere. Very interesting. He has breaths. I think he has allomancy, and I think he has, you know, his light weaving. So, very interesting to me. Huge Wit fan. That's the summary of what I'm getting at here. Is I love Wit. I love him all the time. Very fitting of Yasna to break up with him. Slay Yasna. That is the correct thing to do. But also, Wit does say at the end that he loved her. So, you know. I'm not saying that means anything is right. I have very particular opinions on love, which we can rant about another time. But I loved their relationship. I also think the relationship should not be. I can feel those two things at the same time, and I do. I think the wise thing for Yasa to do is to not. But also, I would enjoy every moment they are. You know? Sometimes that's just how it is. Overall, about the end of the book, there are a lot of things that aren't wrapped up, and there's a lot of things that aren't fulfilled, and I think that's part of why it's hard to have an opinion on this book. It feels, it's not a cliffhanger, it's just not wrapped up. There's a lot of things not wrapped up. This book was already so long as it was that Sanderson couldn't, like, add another chapter just, like, tying up some things. He just made it so, guess what? Shallan is now trapped in Shadesmar. You don't know what happened to Yano. You don't know what happened to Zio. Don't know what happened to Fen. Don't know what's up there. Because there's no communication anymore. There's no way for him to update all the characters other than to go to all their point of views. Which honestly would almost be cheating. So it makes a lot of sense. But it's also, it makes it hard to gauge this book. It's hard to be like, I loved this book. It was satisfying. 5 out of 5 stars. Which, I love this book. It's satisfying. It's 5 out of 5 stars. But it's hard for some people to say that because the book just didn't wrap up a lot of things. As I said earlier, like, Yasna kind of just went in a circle. She just had a bad time, and that's it. It didn't resolve. I mean, she accepted that she failed, but, like, that was it. There wasn't a resolution for her, which is very interesting because I think this is pointing out how used to resolutions we are, and Sanderson just kind of was like, all right, there's some happy endings, there's some bad endings, and you don't know what comes next. Bye. It's kind of crazy. You know, I'm curious what Relaine and Renarin and everybody, Yasna, like, I'm curious what the fuck everyone's gonna do next. But I assume we don't get to know until the next book. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I really want to reread Era 2 now because it seems relevant because of Wit. I think the other thing is that it's hard to process this book because, again, so much of it was in the other realm, and there's so many reveals and so much history to go through. You have to, like, understand the heralds and grasp all that. I think this book is better with time to process it, I suspect. I suspect that, like, it will feel different as you have time to process all the meanings. There's also a lot of very subtle loopbacks to the previous 4 books, like all 4 of them. There's a lot of like very subtle things that are brought back, or not so subtle, like the flute, that are brought back full circle. So I think that this is a book that's great when you read it in the context of the other 4. I'm not sure if it's very rereadable. I really don't know. Just because it's such a lore heavy book, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. I have no clue. But I think that it'll make reading the other 4 books even better. So, I think it works out in the end. That's all I have. I love this book. I really do. I really, really loved this book. I am still processing it. I still don't know how I feel about a lot of it in a way, but I still love the book regardless of how I feel about it. Does that make sense? I think it really fits the series. I could not have predicted it. It had me on my toes at times, which is, typical Sanderson. But at the same time, I think it is satisfying and fulfilling. And I love some of the quotes, and I love the themes. And there were some kick-ass moments. So, it's still one of my favorite books I've ever read. That is it for Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. What's new and what's next? We're gonna start with something a little abnormal, not a book, but still something new. If you haven't already clocked it, this is the Stormlight Archive sweater that I did not buy. I got my Christmas presents in February, and my parents bought me this because I told them I liked the Stormlight Archive. So my parents bought me the sweater. My parents, who usually don't do Christmas gifts for me that much or well. Furthermore, they got me 3 more of the Sanderson pins and the holidays card with all the characters except Kaladin. I was so happy. I can't even express to y'all how much glee and joy I had unboxing this. First I saw the pins. I got, oops, I bumped Hoyd out of place. I got Yasna. This is Yasna. Dalinar. I got the Dalinar pin. Look at him. Look at him. Dalinar. It's not going to focus because everything's reflective. That's why I didn't want to hold this up. But I got the Dalinar pin, and I got the Adolin pin, which is awesome. I already had Kaladin and Shallan, but Dalinar, Adolin, and Yasna is... I'm so happy. And Wit is in the corner here. I'm so happy. This was a great find. Thank you to my parents for getting me more Stormlight Archive merch. This is my official Stormlight Archive board. This hangs up on the wall in front of my desk because I'm a nerd. So, very cool. If you're wondering why I don't use the Hoyd bookmark, it's because I bent it. So, it's decor. Very sadly, it is decor. I just fucked up my board. I'm gonna fix that later. Furthermore, I'm not done yet. Furthermore, my parents bought me 2 books. And they aren't cheap books. They are the 2 other collectible editions for The Expanse that I did not own. So now I have all 3. And they look good. They look good. Oh, it looks so good. I make an exception for this one looking different because this is the 10th anniversary edition. Of course. But the spines match, and that's really what matters. Oh, these are beautiful. And they have the... I fucked it up. Please? Oh, there's art on the... I didn't realize this. There's art on the inside of the... Look. Oh, that's crazy. I did not realize that. Okay, please, for the love of God, do not hurt the book. Okay, there we go. Yellow on the inside of this one, and then this one has like blue on the inside. Does this have art on the inside? Oh, it does. It has the original art on the inside of each one. That's very cool. You can see the Russidante, the Rossi. So they also bought me this, which is crazy. So double hit for my parents. They nailed my Christmas gifts this year. Book nerd, get me books. I'll be very happy. Furthermore, they also got me a $50 Barnes and Noble gift card. So in case you didn't realize I was a book nerd, really am. They figured it out. I bought 3 books with that $50 gift card, and it was a tight deal. I had to use my discounts and everything to make this work. But I got 3 books with that $50. I got Blade of Dream by Daniel Abraham. This is the second book of Kithamar trilogy. Um, the first book of this, I don't know if y'all recall, I have signed by Daniel Abraham because I met him in person. So I felt it'd be fitting for me to get the second book because he signed my book. I should probably read it. Read that series. I also bought the second book for N.K. Jemisin's Broken Earth trilogy, Obelisk Gate. And, as per tradition, I grabbed my random book. And this random book is A Portrait in Shadow. I did read the back of this book for the record. Usually the random book rule is that I just grab a random book. I was planning to grab this. I just also read the back, and I saw the name Galileo, and I extra grabbed the book. It seems to me that it's like painting magic, and I'm here for it. I'm very fascinated. So this will be a random book we read, and we'll see if I like it. And yesterday I bought yet another book because my roommates wanted to go to the bookstore. So I went to the bookstore with my roommates, and I got the third book of Broken Earth, Stone Sky. Very pretty cover. I love the colors. Stone Sky and K. Jemisin. So now I have the whole trilogy. Yippee! So we have a lot of new books here. A lot of new books. Thank you, Christmas, belatedly. I don't actually celebrate Christmas, by the way, which is why I again was surprised by all this. It's not a holiday I celebrate, but my parents do. Very interesting. I wasn't expecting this, so I own a lot of new books. I don't know what's next though. That's a great question. I have been tackling that question all day. There's several possibilities. The most likely is that I finish Witch King because I already have the loan from the library. I still have 11 days to finish that book, so I assume I'll probably finish it. The problem with Witch King is that it's an ongoing series, so it's kind of unfortunate, but also I don't want to DNF another book. There's very few books I've DNF'd, but Witch King is now one of them, and I don't want to DNF it, so I'll probably finish Witch King. But like other than that, I don't know what's next. I don't know. This was the big goal. Like I don't know how else to say that. Starlight Archive was the big reading goal for me. And so now that I've read it, I'm kind of shook. What's next? This is like the biggest thing I've ever read. The Expanse is longer, I think, but you know what I mean. Like this is like the most deep, like heavy. I don't know what to do next. I've been pondering maybe First Law, right here, First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I've been debating Faithful and the Fallen down here by John Glenn. I've been thinking about Farseer by Robin Hobb. The problem with Farseer is that while it is a trilogy, there's then a bunch of other trilogies after it. I don't know. I don't know what to read. I really don't know what to read. I don't know if I should lock in on standalones. I don't know if I should try to tackle all the stuff on my Kindle that I have not touched any of the books on my Kindle. Like, I have all these books and I have books on my Kindle. Like, there's so much to read, but I don't know what next. Part of me wants to like get away from Sanderson. Part of me wants to finish Sanderson, like, maybe go at Elantris, maybe read all the standalone books. I spent so much money on these 4 secret novels. Like, they are expensive. So like, I should read them because I spent so much money on them. But I also just spent so much time reading Sanderson. I've been reading Sanderson for 4 to 5 years now. I think I started my senior year of high school, maybe even my junior year, which would be 6 years. I've been reading Sanderson for a long time now. And I feel like I want to give some other authors some love. But at the same time, now is a great opportunity to finish Sanderson, to catch up until he released Ghost Bloods and whatnot. But like, now that I know the Cosmere, I know the Cosmere pretty decently now. I can read Elantris and Lost Metal and the 4 secret novels. So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm also, people keep making me worried about Elantris because people keep telling me they don't like Elantris, but like, I have to read it. It's part of the Cosmere. I have to. So just telling me that you don't like it is just making me tentative to read anything. So it's a struggle. It's an ongoing process. I'm very curious about the leatherbacks. I won't lie. I am curious. I kind of want to know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I suppose we'll see what's next. I think the Witch King is the best answer I can give y'all. I will try to read it. Other than that, I do kind of need to go through Arcanium Unbounded now. All my books are falling over. Arcanium Unbounded. I'm a lot less scared of opening this now because there's a lot less spoilers for me. I think Elantris is like pretty much the only spoilers, and I think that's the Emperor's Soul is Elantris, I believe. But I'm a lot less worried now because I can't be spoiled so much anymore. Alright, that's all I have. How long was this video? 50 minutes? Not bad, not bad, not bad. Okay, that's all I have. We'll see what the future holds for us. And just remember, journey before destination. Bye-bye. Have a good one.